Harvey Weinstein is nothing compared to this guy. So the Chinese government is trying to cover for a serial rapist, a Chinese serial rapist who I happened to work for in the past. And this guy is worse than Weinstein, R. Kelly, and all these other big scandals combined. He's responsible for raping hundreds of young women from the rural parts of China who he brought into his company, which he ran like a cult. And his only sentence, after years of raping these hundreds and hundreds of women, destroying their lives, making some of them disappear, and involving them in this massive big cult, was a 4-year sentence. Now, not only did the sick man only receive a 4-year sentence, he actually only served less than 2 of those 4 years. And I found this out because his ex-personal assistant and I are still in contact and confirmed this. Now, on top of this, the Chinese government has gone to great lengths to scrub the story from the internet. Don't be surprised if you haven't heard about this guy before or heard about this massive case, which affected, like I said, hundreds, possibly thousands of women during his entire career and what he was doing. Not only have they completely scrubbed relevant news articles or any updates about this, it's very hard to find any information about this guy on the Chinese internet, even though he was one of the most powerful and most rich people in China. Think of an Elon Musk kind of a situation, or a Bill Gates kind of situation. This guy was so incredibly rich and connected and powerful in China. They've not only scrubbed all the information about him, but the Chinese government themselves tried to get my video taken down about him. You know the video I made where I told the story of how I was a bodyguard for a Chinese serial rapist? That video, the Chinese government, China Central Television, which is the state media, manually went in there and tried to get that video removed from YouTube. I'll explain a little later. We need to shine more light on this story. And so I'm bringing in a friend of mine. In fact, we met while working for the rapist. I've known him for about 15 years. He's going to tell you a little bit of his side of the story because he's actually the first member of the foreign staff that was approached by one of the girls and told that this guy was raping them. So I just want to say a big thank you to my friend Dave for coming on. Dave and I have a long history together, and we actually met when working for the rapist at Sun Moon or CCVIP. In fact, you can see him in the promotional materials where you can see me as well.
Callan method makes you think in English.
Callan method comes from England.
学英语 CCVIP.
Yeah, remember those?
Yeah, I remember that only too well.
Yeah, what was it? English comes from England or something like that.
Sun Moon Boo Hao.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, we actually met there, and you started a short while after I started working there. I don't know, probably a couple months afterwards. And I mean, maybe just you can tell everyone what it was like, what the working environment was like there first.
It was really odd. They had the boss had a lot of bizarre rules, and if you broke any of those rules, they would fine you. So they would deduct money from your pay, and that went for everyone. The Chinese staff got it the worst because they had to wear these bizarre, over-the-top, sexy airline staff uniform type things, which were, designed to be attractive to him, which we didn't know at the time, but it was always odd. You had to bow whenever you entered the building as well, which is also really strange. It's not really a Chinese thing.
No, not at all.
It was just about control. That's all it was about.
Yeah,
control with that guy.
Remember, we had to wear those pins on our jackets.
Yes, you had to wear these pins with the British flag on, the Union Jack, and if you didn't wear them, you were fined.
Yeah, it was kind of like a Union Jack, but it was his name, the Shan Mu, kind of in the same design as the Union flag. I remember we had to pay for those out of our own pocket. We had to buy them. And then if you didn't wear it or you wore it wrong, you'd get fined. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. And then we would have to go to all these meetings and bullshit shows, which are all in Chinese. And none of us spoke really good Chinese in those days and couldn't really understand what was being said at these meetings and shows stuff. It was all just about him.
Yeah, I remember.
His little God complex.
Oh yeah, for sure. He would sit there and like have a monologue for an hour, and everyone would have to just sit there attentively and listen to him. I remember those days, and we were just, especially the foreigners, you know, that was early days of China for me and you too. I mean, I'd only been there for about a year and a half, 2 years or so, and when I was working there, couldn't speak the language yet, except for a few phrases, and then you have to sit. This guy's monologuing for an hour. No one's allowed to make a word. No one's allowed to move. You have to all sit there, and then you'd have those like bizarre fashion shows and things like that too. Do you remember those?
Yes. Yeah, they were cringeworthy. And they went on for hours. And we just sit there bored out of our minds.
Yeah.
It was just nonsense. There was absolutely no actual genuine reason for us to be there.
And I remember, like, you would get fined if you didn't come to those shows, and, you know, if you made a noise or something, you know, you get fined. And so, like, it was all about controlling people through like finding them. And the staff that worked there, the Chinese staff, got paid so little anyway that any fine was significant, absolutely, like really significant, like a huge percentage of their pay. So they were incredibly obedient.
And they all had to live in company dormitories as well. They weren't allowed to socialize outside of work, even with us. They weren't allowed to.
Yeah, there was that strict rule. I remember the staff were not allowed to, for instance, go and have lunch with us. And I remember we got close to some of the staff, we'd invite them out, want them to come and have lunch with us, and they wouldn't be allowed to. You know, it was crazy, the amount of control. And also, don't forget, he had cameras in the women's dorms and stuff, and even in the bathrooms. I remember that.
Yes. I remember them telling us that, yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy. Yeah. So, I mean, here's the thing. The reason why I've got you on here, the main reason, of course, is a lot of, in fact, pretty much all information about what happened with this guy has been scrubbed off the internet. It's kind of crazy, and it's obviously it makes China look bad to have a story like this go out, okay? Let's be completely honest, because this guy was so high up. He was there at the New Year galas. He was very much involved in government and in the image of China. So
he had a lot of contacts very high up. So
yeah, exactly. So the problem is, like, a story like this, which is bigger than Weinstein or any of these, you know, other stories we hear in the West, which get so much press, and it makes everybody look how immoral society is, or look how bad, you know, Hollywood is, or look how bad XYZ is. That kind of scandal can really bring the image of China down, especially the way they're trying to project themselves. And so it's in the best interest of the Communist Party to hide this kind of thing away. And so because it's all hidden away, and it's very hard to find any information about this online, except for some very outdated newspaper articles that just mention a few things and a small few clips here and there, it's impossible to find anything. And because of this, I told this story not that long ago on my channel, a couple of months ago. And I've got a lot of people that were kind of doubting, you know. Well, obviously, most people believe me because I got bloody photographic evidence and all that kind of stuff of me being there and all that. Yes. But there's, of course, the 50 Cent Army and the CCP sycophants have been trying to say that I photoshopped myself into those pictures and that the story isn't true and that kind of thing. But, you know...
they always... That's what their job is, though. The twisted truth. That's what they do.
Correct. So, I mean, I just wanted you to come on here and verify that this stuff really happened. You know? Yeah,
absolutely. Yes, I'm the one that was first told about it.
Yeah, that's right.
A girl came to me and told me that one of our colleagues had been raped. Like, I think it was the night before.
Yeah.
And was in a state.
Yeah.
And then I told you guys.
Yeah. And, you know, I mentioned in my original video that the staff actually approached one of the other foreigners, and that person was actually you. You were the first person that the staff told. I mean, we all knew something was really, really wrong because, you know, we'd seen some of the girls come in crying and all sorts of strange things were going on. But then
some would disappear.
Yeah, some of them disappeared. That's right. They just weren't there anymore. Anyway, the fact of the matter is you were the first person they approached, and maybe you can just tell everybody kind of what went down, what was said, and obviously we're not going to mention any names or anything.
But one of the staff came to me and told me that one of our colleagues had been raped by the boss. I think it was the night before, and she was in a hell of a state. Where I told you guys, Winston and the other foreign staff, what I'd been told, And yeah, it was a very, very difficult time. You know, we tried to think of different ways to catch him out and stuff, but we were powerless to do anything.
Yeah.
You know, it was a powerful guy. China's a place where there is no rule of law. The police aren't going to help you in that kind of case, especially when we're foreigners.
Yeah.
They will just kick you out. Best case, they just deport you.
Yeah. Yeah. Best case.
Worst case, you disappear.
Yeah.
But, you know, and we tried to help the staff who were going through this, because it wasn't just one; it was many. You know, it was happening to many of the girls, and they were mostly younger girls, mostly from the countryside. They weren't used to city life. Quite naive, some of them, but yeah, they were really nice. But awful what was happening to them. Absolutely awful.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and what you say there is true. I mean, we tried to get the girls to come forward. We tried to get them to go press charges. We tried our best to do what we could. And like you said, as foreigners specifically, we were very powerless. And for those of you out there who don't understand, this guy was incredibly connected, not only in the government, but just in general. You know, he's the kind of guy who has all the mafia connections. He has all the government connections. And that's how he controlled the girls as well.
He was friends with the chief of police in Shenzhen as well, and the mayor at the time. So
exactly. Well, I mean, remember that time we had that foreign girl who was working there, and they screwed up and her visa was expired. You know, because you're supposed to apply at the Public Security Bureau within 30 days of getting your sort of a Z visa in your passport. You have to go and actually get it like processed or whatever. And they screwed up and they waited more than 30 days. And so she was actually there illegally by no fault of her own. And the boss, I remember, just went down to the Public Security Bureau, walked into the back room. I was there because I took the girl there, you know, because she was in a state, I remember. The boss just walked into the back, talked to his connection buddies, and walked out straight away with a visa in her passport, you know? That's how connected the guy was. And
that's after he stole her passport.
Yeah. Then they stole her passport, try to make her stay. Man, it's crazy stuff. But I mean, what I'm saying is, like, usually to apply for a visa like that, you have to go through a whole lot of paperwork. Of course, you have to leave your passport at the Public Security Bureau, and it takes like a month or something like that, or a number of weeks.
Officially, you would have to leave China again and go back to your home country and then reapply for your Z visa.
Yeah,
officially, that's what you
exactly. You're supposed at that time specifically. That was at that time you would have to actually leave and come back. Yeah, and he just walked in there, and literally within 10 minutes, he walked out with a visa printed and put into her passport. So, you know, when you've got those kind of government connections with the police, and somebody comes and tries to say, hey, this guy is a rapist and all that kind of thing, do you think you're going to get anywhere? No, you're going to be the one that ends up in jail, not him, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, you know what? The most damning thing about all this is my video that I put out recently about him. The Chinese government actually tried to get it taken down, and the reason the reason I know this is I used an incredibly small clip. I think it's about a 10 or 11 second clip of security camera footage, you know, from his apartment that shows him and the girl walking into the elevator. I obviously can't show it here, otherwise they're going to try this again. And that came from a little clip of from CCTV, you know, the Chinese Central Television.
Yes.
Now
now known as GTN.
CGTN, over here. The thing is, that specific clip wasn't even on CGTN. I mean, on CCTV. I found it mirrored on a YouTube channel somewhere. It was like obscure. It's like really bad. It's like 360p resolution. It's incredibly terrible.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist anymore, right? But you know, I didn't even use a long clip of it. I didn't even use a full screen. I just used the tiny bit that's got the security camera footage.
Yeah.
And I got a manual copyright claim from none other than China Central Television, like a manual claim. And that's different because if the algorithm picks up, if you use a piece of Hollywood movie or something, you know, the YouTube algorithm will pick it up and automatically sort of say, hey, you know, that doesn't belong to you. You get a copyright claim. You can dispute it or not. This was a manual claim. Okay, so this means that China Central Television or someone representing them would have to have gone to my video specifically, been told about my video, because it wouldn't pick it up. It's in like shit ADP, right? So they had to go there, specifically manually do a copyright claim. And they obviously did that in order to try and take the video down. And as we all know, China Central Television is the government.
Which is quite laughable.
Yeah,
which is quite laughable when it comes to China, because breach of copyright is normal business practice in China.
Oh, yeah.
At least it was.
This is what blows my mind, though. This guy was caught red-handed. Okay, not only did the cops, when that one courageous woman who finally stepped forward to report this, right? Which we're not going to mention her name, but when she finally stepped forward and they actually went to go and do an investigation, remember they found that digital camera in his apartment and his hard drives and stuff with hundreds and hundreds of pictures of all the different women, right?
Yes, because he's been doing it for years.
Yeah, he'd been doing it for years, and he's a complete pervert, and he was taking photos of them when he was abusing them and raping them and stuff. Yeah. And the Chinese courts gave him 4 years.
And he only served 2.
And he only served less than 2. Well, Dave, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. It's been very good to talk about this, with you, someone who was actually there, during all of this.
No problem.
I seriously appreciate it. And for those of you who don't know Dave, he's been a good friend of mine for many, many years. He's a professional photographer, and I'll have all the links to what he does below. So please go give him a little bit of support. I'll catch you soon again, mate. Can't wait to share another beer with you.
All right. Cheers.
Before I end this video, I'd like to address all the people who are about to leave a comment saying, what about R. Kelly? What about Weinstein? What about XYZ? What about Hollywood? What about corruption here or there? It doesn't matter. This is not a competition. And if it was a competition, as Dave and I discussed, China would still win when it comes to the abuse of women and the lack of rights that women have. What you're doing by trying to employ this whataboutism is a massive disservice to the vulnerable women in China. Look at what's recently happened with the Me Too movement in China. It's been smashed. We need to look at China because China has a massive problem. We need to shine a light on this. We need to discuss this, because if you keep making excuses for this by employing whataboutism, you are literally taking those women and throwing them out into the cold. Stop making excuses for the bad behavior that is allowed to flourish in China's society and culture. Talk about it. Say it's bad without having to say, what about Weinstein? What about XYZ? It's bad. It needs to be addressed. If you care about the rights of women and human rights, you should be taking out a magnifying glass and looking at China right now. Now, I'm not one to just idly talk about something without having some kind of a solution. And so myself and Seamilk have had these commissioned. This is, I don't know if you can see that. This is a proper artwork by a proper artist. It's an oil painting. It's completely authenticated and signed by the artist himself. It's on a canvas. Rape Ape and the Beach Monkeys. That's normally what he looks like a kind of a, I don't even know how to explain that, like a beach monkey or something. I'm sorry, but I have no respect for this man. Yeah, okay. Disgusting, man. We used to call him the bionic squirrel. If you look at what he looks like over there.
The beach monkey took off.
Yeah, beach monkey. He is.
Then it converted into Rape Ape.
Rape Ape.
And someone said, this beach monkey puts the ape in rape.
Featuring Schittler and their new album, Cleaning My Apartment, featuring the hit single, Toothpaste Makes You Minty Fresh. For context, watch the original video. I was a bodyguard for a Chinese serial rapist. Now, we're actually going to be selling this by auctioning it off as an NFT. And a massive amount of the proceeds are going to go to 2 charities. The first one being the Coalition Against Trafficking in Women, and RAIN, the Rape, Abuse and Incest National Network. This is our way of turning a tragic story like this into something that can help women in need. There's not only this one, though. We also had a cartoon sketch made, which is also going to be auctioned off as an NFT. Links below. If you win the NFT, you will also, of course, receive the original artwork, completely signed and authenticated by not only the artist, but myself and C-Milk too. Thank you very much, everyone. And as always, you know the drill. Stay awesome. Harvey Weinstein is nothing compared to this guy.